this Sunday is Mother's Day. So we're going to talk about Mother's Day and moms on this episode of the Driving with Rob podcast. I thought I did a Mother's Day episode last year, but I went back and tried to find it and I couldn't find one. So apparently I did not do a Mother's Day episode last year. So this year we're going to do one. And Mother's Day in the United States is the second Sunday in May. And this year, since the first Sunday was May 2nd, it does kind of feel like Mother's Day is coming a little early this year, but this Sunday, May the 9th, is Mother's Day. And if you haven't bought Mom a card or flowers or made some kind of plans to do something with Mom, then you need to get on it because it's this Sunday. But anyway, Mother's Day in the United States is the second Sunday in May. The UK and Ireland just had Mother's Day a couple of weeks ago because in the UK and Ireland, Mother's Day is recognized on the fourth Sunday of Lent. But in the United States, it's the second Sunday in May. And Mother's Day in the United States is actually a fairly new thing, a fairly modern thing, if you want to consider 100 years as a modern thing. It was actually signed by a proclamation by Woodrow Wilson in 1914, so it's just over 100 years ago. But it was actually prompted by a lady named Anna Jarvis. And Anna Jarvis helped take care of the wounded during the Civil War. And she was a peace activist. She was very, very much anti-war because she had seen the horrors of war and seen too many mothers heartbroken over the death of their son during war. And when her own mother passed away, she decided that the United States should have an official day to honor mothers and motherhood. And like most holidays, it became very, very commercialized. And before she passed away, she had actually spoken out against the commercialization of Mother's Day. By the 1920s, the Hallmark people, the people who make the greeting cards, had already found a way to cash in on Mother's Day. But Anna Jarvis, the person who actually pushed for and ultimately got Woodrow Wilson to sign a proclamation, was appalled by the commercialization of Mother's Day. She believed that Mother's Day was a day to set aside to actually go sit with and spend time with your mother, or to actually write her letters telling her how important she is to you and how much she means to you, not an occasion for the greeting card companies to make money. And of course, the florist made money. And a red rose is a symbol of motherhood. And I think one of the reasons that a red rose became a symbol of motherhood is because in the United States, that's the time of year that roses are blooming. And you wear a red rose to honor your mother. If your mother has passed away, like mine has, you wear a yellow rose or a white rose to indicate that your mother is no longer with us. My mom passed away 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago in March. And I miss my mom. But I think like most people, I had a tendency to take Mom for granted when Mom was still with us. See, one of the things that you have to remember about Mom is that Mom loves you no matter what. The love of a mother is unlike any other love you'll ever have in your life. Because if you think about the unconditional love that a mom has for her child, there's no comparison. There's nothing else that compares to it. Because Mom will love you no matter what. In the old days when they used to have public executions and televised executions on TV, no matter how terrible and horrible that person was, at the execution, in tears for this mass murderer, was his mom. And maybe Mom knew how terrible and horrible a person he was, and how much this guy completely deserved what was about to happen to him. Mom still loved him, no matter what he did. No matter how terrible he was, Mom still loved him. And what my wife and the mother of my children always said was that for 9 months, They were the same person. And that's one of the reasons that her and so many other mothers are so completely anti-abortion. Because when my wife was pregnant with each one of the children, she never thought of there was her and then there was a baby inside her. For 9 months, they were the same person. That baby was part of her, she was part of it. And as much as I love my children, and as much as I recognize that those children are a part of me, they really were a part of her. Completely, physically, tangibly a part of her for 9 months. And I think that's the reason that a mother's love is so much different from a father's love, from a romantic love, from any other kind of love. Because it goes beyond a bond between two people. This is literally where you were born. This was literally two people who had their blood pumping from the same heart. And when you realize that the difference between a mother's love and anybody else's, that before that baby's heart developed, mom's heart literally kept it alive. And that's a powerful, powerful thing when you stop and think about it. No matter how close a relationship you will have with anybody else for the rest of your life, nobody else's heart literally kept you alive. And just let that sink in for a minute. You literally owe mom your life. You owe mom everything. But it's so easy to forget because mom's always there. And mom's making you do stuff you don't want to do. She's making you clean up your room. She's making you take a bath. She's making you do your homework. And as all my kids have said at one time or another, Mom, you worry too much. Mom can't help but worry too much. Because Mom loves you that much. And I think about my mom. And I was always Mom's favorite. My brother and sister will tell you that I was Mom's favorite. But see, you got to think about me and Mom. Mom was 18 when I was born. Her and Pop got married straight out of high school. So Mom was still a teenager when I was born. Me and Mom kind of grew up together. And she kind of used me as a co-parent to watch after the little ones. And I was also the oldest grandchild, so I also watched after all the cousins whenever we would have family get-togethers. But because me and Mom grew up together, Mom was still a young girl when I was growing up. For most of my life, she was still a young woman. And I remember Mom dancing around in the living room, listening to her Elvis records. And whenever I hear an Elvis song, I can't help but think about Mom. And I think one of the last vinyl records that Mom ever bought was Elvis singing Burnin' Love. Mom used to play that thing. She played it till she wore the grooves out on that record. Hunka hunka burnin' love. And she would dance around and sing along with the record, and she would dance so hard she'd make the record skip. She maybe bought a second copy, because I have no doubt she wore out the first copy. She listened to that thing all the time. But it's a nice memory to remember Mom when she was young and happy and dancing around the living room playing her Elvis records. But that's the memory that I have of my mom. I know that you have memories of your mom too. And no matter what kind of relationship you may have with your mom right now, maybe you and Mom are on the outs. Maybe you and Mom have been estranged for some time. Maybe you don't talk to your mom very much. But this Sunday, on this Mother's Day, if you're too far away for a visit, call her on the phone. And with the COVID lockdown, everybody's kind of gotten used to FaceTime and Zoom meetings where you can actually look at Mom while you talk to her. But your mom wants to see you. Your mom loves you. She always has, and she always will. And I don't care what kind of relationship you have with your mom right now, your mom still loves you, and she always has. And if you can't be with your mom this Sunday, at least give her a call. because she wants to hear from you. Because remember, for 9 months, you and her were the same person. And that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast on Mother's Day. Call your mom. Go see her if you can. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and click on subscribe. And the next time I download an episode, you'll get a notification just to let you know that there's a new episode out. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye now.